At my son's graduation, he chose his mother-in-law over me, but what unfolded next was incredible. Tom Green sat in the back of the auditorium, his heart swollen with pride like an overinflated tire. Today was Jason's graduation, a moment he had envisioned for years, his son standing proud on the cusp of a future Tom had always promised him. Worn hands tightly clasped, Tom's calloused fingers betrayed decades of sweat and labor, the very essence of what he had sacrificed for this day. Memories of late nights in the garage, the sound of wrenches clanging like distant applause, only deepened his anticipation. Yet, as he looked at Jason on that stage, a shadow flickered in his chest, an unsettling tinge of unease he couldn't quite shake. As Jason stepped up to the podium, a confident smile on his face, Tom watched with bated breath. But as the words flowed from Jason's lips, an ode to relationships and gratitude, Tom felt the warmth draining from his chest. The moment hung suspended in the air. Jason's praises for Linda, his mother-in-law, cut sharp and cold. Mentioning her instead of Tom sent a shockwave of betrayal rippling through Tom's core. Questions swirled fiercely. Had Jason ever truly appreciated his sacrifices? Did the boy feel that he was defined by Tom's grit, or was he longing to escape that identity, the very identity Tom had fought to give him? Caught in spirals of internal conflict, Tom attempted to brush off the words, but they festered. He was an honest man who believed family loyalty was sacred. Yet here stood his son, embracing a world shaped more by Linda's approval than his own father's years of toil. The air turned heavy, suffocating, as Tom wrestled with a rising tide of emotions, hurt, confusion, and an echoing sense of loss. What had he missed? Suddenly, the dream he'd harbored for so long felt like a mirage dissipating in the desert heat. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As the applause erupted, drowning out the turmoil in Tom's heart, he felt that familiar weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He wanted to confront Jason, to demand answers. Yet, beneath the surface churned a deeper anxiety, a fear that Jason's affections had shifted beyond reclaim. What had he done to breed this disconnect? The more he grappled with it, the clearer it became that the bond he had so fiercely nurtured was now an anchor dragging him down. With each second ticking by, the chasm between father and son widened, leaving Tom gasping for understanding. In quiet evenings filled with the comforting sounds of engines revving and gears shifting, memories of the shared laughter in the garage felt like faded photographs slipping from his grasp. Tom began to recount their journey in written words, pouring out the torment of unspoken dreams onto the pages of a notebook. With every stroke of the pen, an urgency grew within him. Could he mend what's broken, or was he destined to observe Jason's future from the sidelines? Then, as the narrative grew, it pivoted, shifting toward an unfamiliar truth. Maybe Jason's admiration for his mother-in-law spoke to deeper struggles within him. Tom realized he couldn't just craft a tale. He needed to confront the shifting tides of their relationship. And just as the words began to flow freely, a nagging doubt stung him. What if Jason would never see the sacrifices for what they were? All at once, the question loomed larger than ever. Could a bridge ever be built to span the distance that was suddenly suffocating him? He felt trapped at the precipice of uncharted territory, every unresolved emotion coiling tighter, creating a storm that threatened to break loose. In the days following the graduation, the silence in Tom's home was almost palpable. The hum of machinery that had once signaled shared projects and laughter now felt muted. Each tick of the clock a reminder of the growing distance between father and son. Tom pored over his notes, the words reflecting his confusion and hurt, but they also ignited something deeper within him, a burgeoning realization that perhaps this moment provided an opportunity for growth. Tom thought back to his own father's lessons, the wisdom imparted in snippets, much like tools laid out on a workbench. The value of hard work, the strength in vulnerability, and above all, the significance of communication. These lessons had shaped Tom into the man he was. Yet now, as he stared down at the ink-marked pages, he couldn't shake the feelings of inadequacy. He had always believed that actions spoke louder than words, but Jason's silence was louder than any accusation. Determined to bridge the rift, Tom set forth a plan. He would confront this head-on, yet approach it with care. Instead of accepting defeat, he could learn to articulate his feelings, to transform the unresolved tension into a dialogue. He spent his nights drafting a letter, a heartfelt message to Jason, explaining the role he believed father should embody and expressing his disappointment without overwhelming blame. It wasn't about apportioning guilt, rather, it was about fostering understanding. He also contemplated inviting Jason back to the garage to share not only tasks but also conversation. But beneath his resolve lay the gnawing fear that Jason might react defensively. Would he dismiss Tom's vulnerability as weakness? Would he underestimate a father's struggles, characterizing them as the ill-timed musings of an old man who failed to connect? With each passing day, he wrestled with the growing urgency of the moment. They had never needed words in the past. They had built their bond on shared endeavors. Yet that very foundation felt shaky now. In searching for a way to reforge their connection, Tom began to recognize the hidden talents within himself, the ability to lead with his heart, to create understanding where silence had once prevailed. The day finally arrived when Tom felt ready. He spent the morning polishing the garage, a place that had always served as a sanctuary for both father and son. When Jason walked in, Tom was surprised to see a blend of nostalgia and apprehension wash over his son's face. Maybe they could find their way back. They just needed to start anew. "Dad," Jason began hesitantly. "Let me go first." Tom's voice was steady, yet the weight of his emotions danced just beneath the surface. With newfound courage, he shared the heart of the letter, revealing his raw vulnerabilities. In doing so, Tom embraced a startling sensation. Being open in this way felt as liberating as reviving an old engine back to life. As he poured his heart out, Jason's expression shifted from uncertainty to contemplation. They were navigating uncharted waters together. Perhaps this was the turning point Tom had desperately sought, illumination in a dark tunnel of silence. Just as Tom felt a sliver of hope slicing through the tension, Jason surprised him with a question that sent a jolt through the atmosphere. "But why do you think my relationship with Linda affects ours? What was it that made you feel like you don't matter to me?" For a fleeting moment, Tom felt the air leave his lungs. The emotional weight shifted, but before he could gather his thoughts, Jason's words hung heavy, a hard reckoning between them. Tom realized he was at a crossroads. Could he continue unraveling the fabric of their relationship, or retreat back into silence, allowing the discomfort to once again claim its territory? In that pivotal moment, he saw a glimmer of possibility, but also the looming shadow of fear. The urgent truth dawned on him. The conversation had only just begun, and they were on the precipice of uncovering layers that had long remained unspoken. The storm was raging, and both men had yet to find their footing in the deluge of emotions, but there was no turning back now. Tom braced himself for whatever revelations awaited, knowing this was only the start of a deeper journey into their fractured bond. Tom's heart raced as a torrent of emotions surged within him. Jason's question lingered in the air like a live wire, prompting a cascade of memories and feelings he had long buried. How had their relationship reached this fragile state? "Because it feels like you're pulling away," Tom finally managed, his voice a soft trembling. "Seeing you so invested in Linda, I can't help but feel sidelined. It makes me think I'm not enough for you. I'm struggling to understand where I fit into your life now that you're stepping into your own." Jason's brows furrowed as he processed his father's words. There was depth to Tom's concerns that Jason hadn't comprehended. It stung, this realization that his father had been wrestling with feelings of inadequacy while he had been lost in his own narrative. "I had no idea you felt this way," Jason admitted, his voice subdued. "I just thought maybe you'd understand that my life is changing. I thought you'd be proud." Tom felt a spark of frustration merge with his desire for connection. "I am proud, son, but pride doesn't silence the fear of being pushed aside. This should be our time to celebrate your milestones together, not drift apart." The tension in the garage seemed to compress, forcing both of them to confront a painful reality. The grief of potential loss festered between father and son, yet with each shared word, the space between them shrank, however gradually. Tom, recognizing the need to guide this conversation constructively, pondered what next steps he could take. This dialogue was far from over. "Let's talk about it, Jason. Your feelings for Linda and your new life, and how that intersects with our relationship. I want to understand what you're going through." Jason hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck, a gesture of vulnerability. "I get that you want to be involved, but sometimes I don't know how to bridge that gap. I feel like I should hold back my excitement because it only reminds you of what you might lose. I never meant to overshadow you." Tom felt a flicker of pride ignite within him. His son was acknowledging the tension in a way that spoke volumes about his growth. "You're not overshadowing me. You're shining. My challenge is learning how to embrace that light." As the dialogue continued, Tom unearthed clarity in his thoughts. He hadn't just been grappling with fear. He was also face to face with the truth of how he had muddied their bond through his own hesitations. A power struggle had established an emotional chasm. Both had been holding back, unwilling to risk more pain. "I realize now that I've been trying to protect myself," Tom confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "I was too afraid to acknowledge your independence and how it affects me. But we can't be afraid to change. Change doesn't mean losing each other." Jason nodded slowly, as if absorbing his father's novel perspective. "So we can find a balance? Allow me to grow and share that with you, and you can still be a part of my life?" Tom felt a surge of relief. The conversation was shifting. Raw honesty bore the promise of connection. "Exactly. We're navigating a new territory. We have the chance to redefine what being a father and son looks like." Yet even as Tom felt hope creeping back into their relationship, he sensed an underlying question still tethered to Jason's earlier confession. Did the presence of Linda complicate their relationship beyond repair? Before he could articulate this unease, Jason interjected, eyes wide with thought. "And what if change doesn't sit well with us? What if it tests our bond in ways we aren't prepared for?" Tom's heart trembled as the question sank in. The path ahead was daunting, and unearthing deeper truths meant risking vulnerability on both sides, not just for him, but for Jason as well. He understood that their resolve would be tested. "What if we choose to trust each other instead?" Tom suggested, the weight of uncertainty tangling with the burgeoning hope. Could trust be the catalyst to transform not only their relationship, but their perception of themselves? As they ventured into this dialogue, Tom felt a flicker of empowerment blossom within him. He wasn't merely a father venturing to salvage a relationship. He was a participant in a mutual evolution, grappling with what it meant to allow both identities, father and son, to coexist and thrive. Yet, as the shadows of doubt loomed, Tom knew that this was merely the foundation of rebuilding. The stakes have grown higher, and the next moments were crucial. "Dad, do you think we can really make this work?" Jason's concern punctured through the healing space they had begun to build, drawing them back into uncertainty. Tom swallowed hard, aware of the deeper implications of Jason's question. This was just the beginning. How would they navigate the complexities of new relationships while fortifying their own? Tom could hardly focus on the words escaping Jason's lips. The air hung heavy with tension, each moment stretching as thoughts raced through his mind. How to bridge this widening gap? How to reassure Jason without suffocating him? It struck Tom that they were no longer just navigating a relationship. They were also parsing through the ramifications of change, mapping the contours of their respective identities. "Let's take it one step at a time," Tom said, forcing his voice to steady. "Why don't we start with your feelings about this new transition?" Jason nodded, eyes flitting about the garage, as though searching for an answer in the cluttered space around them. "I don't want to lose you in the process of finding myself, Dad. But at the same time, I want to be proud of my future with Linda, and I need you to be a part of that." The way Jason spoke encapsulated both determination and fear, a delicate balance that resonated with Tom. He had to recognize this feeling for what it was, not an attack on their relationship, but a reminder that life naturally evolved. That realization was sobering. "What if we redefine our roles?" Tom proposed, shifting in his seat. "You continue growing into this new version of yourself, and I'll work on being supportive in ways that don't drown my own emotions." "Maybe we need to involve her in our conversations too," Jason finally suggested, though an edge of reluctance still colored his tone. Tom's heart raced. The idea sparked excitement and anxiety. If they included Linda, would it solidify their bond, or would it open unhealed wounds? "Let's take that step when we're ready," Tom replied, acutely aware of how the next conversation with Linda could redefine their path once again. Tom spent the night wrestling with the implications of their conversation. As the moonlight cast elongated shadows through his window, thoughts swirled. Inclusion of Linda felt necessary yet daunting. The question lingered like an unsettled storm. How could he ensure that their dynamic shifted without fracturing against the weight of expectations? The next morning felt different. A palpable air of deliberation infused his routine. He dressed with purpose, the weight of their discussion still heavy on his shoulders. Intentions crystallized. He needed to prepare for whatever conversations lay ahead. While finishing his coffee, Tom pulled out his notepad, a habit he had embraced for years to organize his thoughts. Only this time, the notes were less about work and more about personal strategies. Ideas flowed faster than he could write. "Promote openness," he scribbled. "Seek collaborative growth," followed by "acknowledge insecurities." With each phrase, he felt empowered, affirming that he could approach this changing dynamic not as a threat, but as an opportunity to redefine his relationship with both Jason and Linda. Their planned dinner felt like a tacit agreement of seriousness. The kitchen began to bustle with preparations, and aromas danced around him, intricate spices mingling with familiar scents he cherished through the years. As the time approached, nerves crept back in. What if he didn't like the woman who had captured Jason's attention? No, that wasn't an option. "Focus, Tom," he whispered to himself, shaking his head. "You're not here to judge, but to understand." As the doorbell rang, his heart pounded in tandem with the sound reverberating through the house. Here was Linda and all the baggage she might carry with her. Upon entering, Linda radiated warmth, her presence filling the space like sunlight piercing through clouds. She immediately greeted Tom with a smile and an approachable demureness. "Hi, Tom. Thanks for inviting me," she said, and he couldn't help but notice the genuine sincerity in her eyes. After polite exchanges, they settled around the dinner table. The meal flowed easily, laughter spilling forth as they spoke of trivial things, the kind of conversation that held no real weight but built bridges nonetheless. Tom aimed to keep the atmosphere light and inclusive. He wanted Jason to see them all as a cohesive unit, one not limited by a past filled with concerns. But their discussions shifted as the night deepened. The barriers of formality slowly succumbed to the ties that bound them as families. Tom listened as Linda spoke of her background and the challenges she navigated before finding her place in Jason's life. It struck him. She, like him, had fought similarly to create her identity. Still, Tom felt a part of himself bristling against her intrusion into their shared past. When it was his turn to speak, he had to choose words carefully. "I've spent a lot of time thinking about what my support looks like going forward," he confessed. "I want to celebrate both of your successes, frankly, without feeling overshadowed." Linda nodded. A knowing look exchanged between them, as if acknowledging the intricacies of joint existence. "I believe that coming together doesn't have to mean losing anything. We can all grow." "I want that too," Jason chimed in, his emotions simmering close to the surface. "Each of us has a role to play." In those moments, Tom recognized the telling narratives of their lives intertwining, each thread revealing the strength in their vulnerabilities. He felt more like a mentor than an authority figure, sitting at the nexus of their evolving relationship, witnessing transformations within himself. As laughter resurfaced, their bonding moment was disrupted by a heavy silence that loomed over the table. Tom's resolve wavered, caught in an agonizing realization. If they continued down this path, what would it mean for the future he had envisioned? The evening drew to a close, but the unresolved undertones reverberated. He knew the time was drawing near for deeper discussions, ones that might test the very foundation of their familial bonds. As everyone rose from the table, Tom's mind raced. Linda had become a part of their lives, and no matter how true her intentions appeared, could he fully welcome her? Next, he would have to confront the narrative he had built. Was he truly ready to share his son while rediscovering himself? The weight of the upcoming conversations pressed down heavier than before. Tom awoke the next morning with uncertainty coiling around his thoughts like a dense fog. Something had shifted during dinner. The air felt electrified with a new potential, yet it was mingled with anxiety. Linda's presence was not a simple addition. It stirred a storm of questions he hardly felt prepared to face. He grabbed his notepad again, the blank pages welcoming yet intimidating. What had seemed like a straightforward conversation suddenly felt like a tangled web of emotions. He wrote, "Choose vulnerability," hating how it sounded overly sentimental, yet recognizing its truth. Acknowledging his discomfort might forge a path. It was not just about accepting Linda, but about reshaping his understanding of family entirely. Throughout the day, each moment felt like an exercise in mental delicacy. When Jason came home from school, a casual, unguarded question fractured Tom's resolve. "Dad, are you okay with my relationship with Linda?" His heart sank at the weight behind the inquiry, feeling like a probe into his deepest fears. "Of course, son. Why do you ask?" He fought to keep his tone neutral, but his stomach churned. The gaze Jason gave him cracked open a door he didn't want to explore. His son needed reassurance, and that meant confronting the rawness of their situation. Deep breaths later, Tom shared his thoughts through a carefully crafted story. "Change can be unsettling. You know how you've had to navigate new friends while retaining the old." He watched as Jason absorbed it like a sponge, the nuance registering, not fully, but enough for a beginning. Jason nodded, brows furrowing in contemplation. I just don't want you to feel left out, Dad. The sincerity in his voice tugged painfully at Tom's heart. In that moment, he realized that his own insecurities were not barriers, but mirrors reflecting Jason's worries. How had he failed to realize that they were both trying to hold on to past comforts while confronting their new realities? Vulnerability will be our strength, Tom finally said, hoping to inject a positive resonance into the air. They both needed to navigate this together, and it would take their collective strength to do so. Trust began to take root as conversations grew deeper. Tom witnessed Jason emerge with renewed articulation, a budding maturity surfacing within their exchanges. Each dialogue was a radical act of honesty, peeling away layers of pretense both had unwittingly wrapped around themselves. As the week progressed, Tom broached the topic of Linda more frequently with Jason. They discussed elements he once thought taboo, the complications, the fears, the realities of their blended dynamic. He felt apprehensive, yet invigorated by sharing those spaces, each talk incrementally solidifying their bond amid uncertainty. The real test of his resolve came when Jason announced they had been invited to Linda's family gathering. A moment of sheer panic gripped Tom. He remembered her family, her expectations that now loomed larger than life itself. Would they hold him accountable for past mistakes? It wasn't simply a social event. It was a crossing of streams, a line in the sand. What do you think? He asked Jason, who mirrored his trepidation. It's important to both Linda and me, but... No buts, Dad, Jason injected earnestly, his youthful determination surging. If you're okay with all this, then we do it as a family, together. Steeling his resolve, Tom realized he had a pivotal choice ahead: leap into the unknown or recede into comfort. It was time to chart a new course, whether he felt ready or not. As he prepared for the family gathering, Tom stood before the mirror, grappling with the reflection of a man at a crossroads. The gravity of what lay ahead was undeniable. Could he muster the strength to embrace this connection, or would fear win the day again? And as he set off, a knot of determination twisted tighter within him. A sliver of hope amidst the whirlwind, a challenge to confront. The evening felt like a reckoning, and he could almost hear the echo of expectations humming in the background. In that intricate dance of emotions and events, would Linda's family accept him? What awaited them there could shift everything yet again. The drive to Linda's family gathering was marked by a precarious silence, each moment vibrating with the weight of unspoken words. Tom's grip on the steering wheel tightened, knuckles whitening under the pressure of his internal dialogue. The landscape blurred by, but all Tom could see were the faces of Linda's family. Imagined judgments forming in his mind like storm clouds gathering overhead. He struggled against the sinking realization that this was not just about him. It was about Jason and the fragile connections they were attempting to forge. As they approached the venue, a picturesque home draped in rich autumn hues, Tom's anxiety crystallized into a singular focus on how he'd present himself. It wasn't merely a gathering, it was an opportunity to write the next chapter of their lives. Could he parlay his vulnerability into strength? Could he signal acceptance despite his fears? Jason's chatter snapped him from his trance. "It'll be great, Dad. You'll see." His son's enthusiasm was infectious, yet Tom found it terrifying. "Just be yourself," Jason advised, as though that were the simplest of tasks, that revealing himself at that moment wouldn't be riddled with peril. Stepping through the door, Tom was met with a cacophony of laughter and conversation that felt simultaneously welcoming and foreboding. The living room buzzed with familiar faces, all animated as they traded stories and caught up on each other's lives. He caught sight of Linda, her luminous smile cutting through the noise. In that fleeting moment, he remembered why stepping into this was so essential, not for his own fears, but because of the love he had for both Linda and Jason. "Tom, I'm so glad you made it." Linda's voice cut through the crowd, drawing him toward her. His heart fluttered with a mix of dread and exhilaration. As introductions unfolded, Tom sensed the scrutiny of Linda's family, their warm smiles shaded with curiosity or suspicion. Each greeting felt like a small examination, and he wrestled with the instinct to retreat into his shell. Instead, he forced himself to engage, to reflect back their warmth, and fight against the compulsion to defend his place. "So, Tom, Jason tells us you're a graphic designer," a cousin remarked, probing deeper. "How's that working out for you?" The question struck its mark. It wasn't just small talk. It was a chance to reveal a piece of himself. "It's challenging, but I love creating visual stories," he finally replied, feeling the anxiety begin to ebb. Every project has its own personality, its own challenges. "Sounds like you're passionate," a voice chimed, and suddenly he wasn't alone. As he spoke and shared anecdotes, he noticed how his confidence began to grow. It was astounding how a simple acknowledgement could ignite a connection. Their shared laughter felt like fuel, lifting him above his fears, and Tom briefly allowed himself to bask in the sense of belonging. Yet, as the evening progressed, doubt still nipped at the edges of his awakening. During a lull in conversation, he overheard hushed whispers nearby. Can you believe he thought he could replace her so easily? A shadow of unease washed over him. The insecurity he harbored about not being accepted wrapped around him like a heavy cloak. Just as he was beginning to withdraw, Jason sidled up, a slight frown creasing his brow. "Dad, you've got to lighten up. You're doing great." "Am I?" Tom struggled to remain positive, still tethered to the judgment he feared. But Jason's unwavering confidence kindled something within him. This wasn't just about Tom's acceptance. It was about creating a bridge that would allow both he and Jason to explore new familial territory. Standing in that room, filled with laughter and shared stories, it solidified in Tom's mind that acceptance wouldn't come easily, but it was an effort worth making. He committed to vault over his reservations, ready to engage fully in this familial labyrinth. However, just as he felt a rush of resolve, an unexpected voice interrupted. "So, Tom, when are you going to step up and truly commit to this family?" The question hung ominously in the air, creating a ripple of discomfort throughout the gathering. His heart pounded as all eyes turned to him. The moment had arrived, one that demanded not just a response, but a revelation. Could he rise to meet this challenge? Was he prepared to confront the very doubt that had plagued him all his life? And deep within, a new question began to form. Could he truly carve out a place for himself, or would he be forever haunted by a choice that was never his to make? The answer loomed, waiting just beyond the surface of his resolve. Tom's breath caught as the question hung palpably in the air, suspending him between two worlds. The laughter and chatter around him faded into a distant echo as he focused on the face of his interrogator, Linda's brother, a tall man with an unwavering stare. In that moment, Tom felt exposed, stripped of the protective layers he had so carefully constructed around himself. The silence stretched, and what should have been a simple query now loomed larger than life. Could he truly commit? His heart raced with uncertainty. He felt Jason's gaze on him, steady and expectant, a silent plea for his father to handle this moment with strength. For Jason, this wasn't just about Tom, it was about their future as a family. "Commitment is a journey," Tom found himself saying, the words tumbling forth before he could fully analyze their weight. "I'm here, aren't I?" "I'm making an effort." The assertion sounded more like a question even to himself. Linda's brother crossed his arms, his face unreadable. Effort is one thing, Tom, but are you ready to take the leap? Put your stake in the ground? Is that what it takes? Tom countered, the simmering frustration rising within him. I'm trying to build a place for us. Isn't that what matters? A ripple of murmurs echoed through the room as Tom's voice elevated slightly, fueled by a mix of anxiety and defiance. He could see it in their eyes, the sidelong glances, the uncertainty. They didn't just scrutinize him, they were looking to see if he had the mettle to endure this familial trial by fire. Then he caught Jason's gaze again, grounding him. The myriad thoughts swirling in his mind began to settle into clarity. He realized that this moment was less about justifying himself to Linda's family. It was about erecting a robust foundation for Jason, not merely a bridge between them, but a true connection. The laughter resumed around him, but it had lost its earlier warmth. Tom shifted his focus. What could he say that would not only address the challenge posed by Linda's brother, but also resonate deeply with Jason? Commitment isn't always loud, he replied, a spark of realization igniting inside him. Sometimes it's quiet moments of understanding, shared experiences, and the little things I choose to do every day, all leading me here, to my family. He sensed a tangible shift, a collective inhalation from those within earshot. Perhaps they were beginning to see the essence of what he was trying to convey, a father, a partner, stepping forth not just for his own redemption, but for the unity of those he cherished. Yet even as he spoke those words, Tom felt a twinge of doubt gnawing in his stomach. What if his definition of commitment wasn't comprehensive enough for them? What if the expectations remained insurmountable? The nagging voice in his head wrestled for dominance, the same voice that had tried to suppress him for years. "Then what's next, Tom?" Linda's brother pressed, his voice piercing through Tom's emergence from uncertainty. Here was his chance, a chance to answer not just for himself, but for Jason. "Next, I want to create a life we can all be proud of. I want to learn and grow with this family, even if it means stumbling sometimes." The words resonated, and a flicker of approval danced across Linda's face. She reached for his hand, lending strength to his statement. The gesture felt electric, simple, but it was pivotal. This was about forming connections, not fending them off. It was about embracing the complexities of family. But even as he basked in this moment of unity, the uncertainty shadowed him again. Would everyone accept his vision for their shared journey? Questions loomed over him like specters, whispering doubt. "Tom, it's not just about you," the voice from the crowd chimed in again. "What do you have to offer that shows you truly want this?" With that challenge, Tom's resolve solidified. It wasn't enough to just articulate his commitment. He had to prove it through actions that would echo with integrity and strength. As the evening progressed, Tom inwardly vowed to find ways, both grand and minute, to demonstrate his willingness to be part of this family. Each interaction was now rife with potential to cultivate trust and unveil a sincerity that transcended mere words. But behind his newfound determination lurked the reminder of a challenge yet to come. Could he meet this trial head-on, transforming it into a cornerstone of their unity? The question propelled him forward, even as he deftly navigated the currents of his budding acceptance. Perhaps this was merely the beginning. The real test awaited him in spaces less predictable, lessons born from actions, not declarations. As laughter and chatter resumed, and Jason smiled brightly at him, Tom resolved one thing unequivocally. Moments of truth were merely invitations to rise. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper loomed on the horizon, a challenge that would demand everything from him, shaking the very foundations he hoped to build. What would tomorrow's reality reveal about his quest for belonging? Would he find the courage to step into that unknown? The answers felt tantalizingly out of reach, prompting another question. Could he truly define his role, or would external expectations continue to shape his journey? The morning light streamed through the partially drawn curtains, casting a warm glow over the room. Tom blinked awake, the events of the previous evening still playing on a loop in his mind. Although the laughter and approval he received from Linda and Jason soothed him, the weight of his commitment lingered like a shadow. Today was a new day, but uncertainty clung tightly to his resolve. As he made his way to the kitchen, he felt a twinge of anxiety accompanied by determination. The faces of Linda's family swirled with judgment, their doubts ringing in his ears. What did it mean to prove his commitment, really? Was it enough to express his desire for belonging, or did he need to actively shape a narrative that spoke to his deeper capacities? While pouring coffee, he noticed Jason's art supplies sprawled across the dining table, crayons, construction paper, and assorted projects that bore the creative marks of a child's imagination. Inspiration struck. What if today he used Jason's innocent world of creativity to create a tangible representation of his commitment? "Hey, buddy," Tom called, trying to ignite the energy of a new start. "How about we create something together today? Something that shows what family means to us." Jason paused, wide-eyed, and then grinned broadly, his enthusiasm infectious. "Like a picture with glitter?" Tom chuckled. "Exactly. But more than just a picture, let's make something that shows our journey together." As they set up their crafting station, a flicker of excitement ignited within Tom. This was not just an art project. It could be a metaphor for their evolving relationship. Each stroke of crayon and dab of glue could represent the layers of trust and commitment he yearned to build. Hours passed as they collaborated, tossing ideas back and forth. With each vibrant color on the page, Tom felt a deepening connection with Jason. Here, amidst the chaos of creativity, was a chance to redefine his role. "Dad, how about we draw a bridge connecting two mountains?" Jason suggested, his imaginative spirit soaring. Tom nodded thoughtfully. "Yes, a bridge. It can symbolize how we connect with each other and with others in our family." As they worked, a revelation dawned on him. In the simplicity of drawing a bridge, he unearthed a hidden talent for expressing emotions through art. Each stroke seemed to exorcise the self-doubt that had lingered since his earlier confrontation with Linda's brother. He recognized that, while he had stuttered to verbal assurances, this visual representation held a different power. It made visible his intent to connect, to be part of their family, and, most importantly, to nurture Jason's confidence in their shared vision. Once finished, they surveyed their creation. A vivid landscape featuring two towering mountains joined by a colorful bridge filled with handprints and symbols significant to their experiences together. Moments intertwined with laughs, challenges, and everyday adventures. "Dad, it's perfect," Jason beamed, beaming with pride at their creation. Tom felt a swell of emotion. This artwork was more than just a project. It was a pledge of his commitment, his understanding that creating a family was an evolving work of art, painted with patience, care, and a willingness to adapt. Pride surged through him as Jason rushed to display their creation on the refrigerator. But a nagging thought persisted. What if Linda's family didn't see the value in this? Would they consider it childish or trivial? His heart raced again. This was the external trial he had anticipated would come. The artwork needed to reach not only Jason and Linda, but everyone. Later that evening, as they gathered for dinner, Tom resolved to unveil the creation. He wanted it to speak for itself, a tangible testament of his heartfelt effort. When the moment arrived, he hesitated, his heart pounding as he prepared to share their artwork. "Everyone, I'd like to show you something," he said, his voice steady despite his mounting anxiety. As he positioned the colorful creation in the center of the table, the room fell silent. He met Linda's brother's gaze, anticipating skepticism or judgment, but a flicker of curiosity danced behind those unmoving eyes. This was it, the bridge he needed to cross. Would this artwork be perceived as a profound gesture of commitment or simply a trivial child's play? The fork in the road loomed in front of him, and he felt the gravity of the moment. The silence enveloped them, a tapestry of anticipation woven with uncertainty. Would this bridge lead to acceptance or further distance? Tom took a deep breath as he faced the question he dared not voice. Would this tangible piece of their journey be the beacon that illuminated his path forward, or would it merely serve as a reminder of his fragile standing in Linda's world? The silence in the dining room felt almost electric, pinched between anticipation and apprehension as Tom unveiled the artwork, an embodiment of his commitment woven with Jason's creativity. It encompassed the spirit of vulnerability he had wrestled with, and yet he felt like a tightrope walker, teetering on the edge. "Wow, look at all the colors!" Linda's mother broke the spell, leaning in closer to examine the mountains and the expansive bridge that united them. A ripple of intrigue began to unfurl around the table, eyes flitting to the artwork as if it held answers to the unspoken questions among them. Jason beamed with pride, and Tom felt a swell of satisfaction mingle with continued anxiety about how his family would perceive this gesture. Instantaneously, discussion sparked, questions about the symbolism, the bridge, the meaning of the colors. Tom realized this was more than a simple art project. It was an authentic expression of connection he had hardly dared to believe in. "Well, I see family unity represented here," Linda's brother mused, his voice steady. Tom's heart raced. Was this acceptance? This bridge signifies how we connect despite different paths we might take. It's an interesting interpretation. The gravity of his words began to settle into the space, drawing nods of agreement from around the table. "It's beautiful," Linda chimed in, moving closer to admire the details. "This really does capture the essence of what we're all trying to build together. Thank you for sharing this with us, Tom." In that moment, warmth spread throughout Tom's being. Recognition illuminated the room. They were seeing purpose behind his vulnerability. This was not merely a plea for validation. It was his approach to fostering acceptance and celebrating familial ties. It demonstrated not only commitment to Linda and Jason, but to forming new relationships that transcended past grievances. As laughter returned and voices melded into casual conversation, Tom felt a layer of mistrust recede. The doubts that had coiled so tightly in his mind began loosening, revealing a pathway forward paved with hope and newfound purpose. Yet the reality remained. He was still at the brink of redefining family. Later, as the evening progressed and stories were exchanged, Tom slipped into deeper conversations with Linda's family. Questions arose about their backgrounds. His words transformed from hesitant admissions into confident statements that echoed his journey of resilience. He embraced the allowances of vulnerability, recounting challenges he faced as a father and the barrier of communication that had emerged with Jason. For the first time, he prioritized transparency over pride. Then, amidst the simmering warmth of camaraderie, came the challenging interventions of acceptance. A cousin leaned in close, voice laced with challenge. "Involving yourself in this dynamic is one thing, but can you be a father to Jason while he's navigating a new future with Linda?" The question hung in the air, a reminder of the threadbare balance he now navigated. He felt the gaze of Jason, not held by the weight of judgment, but glimmering with reinforcement. "I can," Tom found himself stating, his voice flooding with conviction. "I'm willing to discover what that means every single day." The clarity of his words cut through lingering doubt, forging conviction fueled by a genuine desire for inclusiveness. As discussions meandered deeper into shared life narratives, Tom absorbed every detail about Linda's family, feeling the dynamic evolve with each passing moment. He was no longer simply the outsider, observing from the periphery. He was solidifying a presence, a role that recognized the need for collaboration. The openness of this night transformed the intimate atmosphere, creating a collective strength among their stories. The evening rolled on, laughter echoing with newfound connection. Tom's heart swelled with fulfillment, especially as he caught glimpses of Jason's own blossoming confidence. Each shared moment anchored their bond, chiseling a legacy they could nurture together. As the gathering began to wind down, Tom knew this was but a chapter, a foundational step toward reimagining their relationship. The adrenaline of doubt was slowly dissipating, revealing a clear sky ahead. The growing confidence he felt echoed through his heart. Days later, as Tom peered out the window, contemplating their morning routine, he couldn't shake an urge to contact Linda's family for a casual gathering. Inspired by that first step into collaboration, he texted Jason, asking if they could extend the invitation to include Linda. The subsequent exchange with her felt lighter, every message a brushstroke paving their way toward familiar territory. Linda's response was swift, filled with enthusiasm, laying the groundwork for another evening of shared experiences. Tom marveled at the evolution happening within him, no longer dominated by fear, but charged with the potential for deeper connections. Their family project was unfolding in ways he had previously been too anxious to imagine. Finally engaging his mind within that space exposed something extraordinary: self-assurance. He realized that nonverbal elements, the art, the conversations, the laughter, expanded his understanding of family. They weren't combinations of challenges. They manifested a growth path that existed solely to foster unconditional acceptance and recognition. As time passed, these connections solidified the realization that he wasn't merely transforming his position, he was embracing the essence of partnership. Strengthened by their shared journey, Tom now understood what it meant to nurture a family defined by mutual respect and appreciation across various realities. He had made a commitment not just to be a father, but to be present. No longer would he feel like a sidelight in Jason's world, overshadowed by any family member. He had built a solid bridge to their future, backed by collective experience. Moments of fear might still arise in collision with new challenges ahead, but entwined with determination grew an assurance that they would face whatever came next together. Through openness, courage, and art, Tom had proven not just to Linda's family, but to himself that he was ready. The final glimpse of confidence in his reflections solidified as he thought of all the paths intersecting within that burgeoning bridge. This was not just his story, it was theirs, woven together, nourished by acceptance and love. This journey had delivered not simply resolutions, but validation and accomplishment he never foresaw. An evolution built not in isolation, but in the richness of familial connection. And so the adventure continued, each step forward forging deeper bonds, not eclipsed by fear, but accentuated by understanding. Today was a testament to what they could achieve together, and dawn lay ahead glowing with the promise of a supportive family. Now it was time. This is your moment to embrace the power of transformation too. If you see the strength in my journey, you need to subscribe now. Don't let this opportunity fade. Leave a like to fuel our journey ahead. I want your thoughts. Comment below with your reactions and theories on our next chapter together. And share instantly this story with at least 5 friends who seek inspiration in their journeys. Don't wait even one more second. Show your support right now.